Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Am I Doing This Wrong? It's your girls, as always, Morgan and Ryann. Not going to change, hopefully. Anyway, how you doing, Ryann?
So far so good. I feel like this has been a really good week for us. As far as the podcast goes, I was looking at some of like our analytics, but also too, we've been just getting really good feedback from having the side hustle summer shorts. So
Yeah, it's been really cool to feature so many different people, and it's just been really exciting. And to see
yeah,
their reaction to it coming out and just getting to collaborate like that has been really fun.
yeah, exactly. No, it's been really great. And it gives me a sense of like purpose in this, like it seems because I love having these conversations. Like,
Yeah.
even like we say when we watch back our own episodes, it's very fun and exciting. But also, too, it's really good to see that, like the interviews that we're having are really resonating with people. I've had a few people like ask me about them and stuff. And I'm like, that's really cool, like to be able to shed light on other people's interests and hobbies past, just like mentioning them, but actually giving them the platform to like speak it for themselves. So that's been really cool.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely. We hope you guys are enjoying it. If you want to hear more, definitely let us know. We would love to pick your brain a little bit if you
Hmm.
have some ideas for us. You
Yeah.
obviously know we love to talk. So if you have some topics or some people you think we should connect with, hit us up.
Yeah. Yeah,
We would love that.
definitely. Yes, definitely. But other than that, yeah, it's been a pretty good week. Honestly, just getting knee deep in this wedding planning, really trying to
Mm.
like keep myself focused and remember things, which are not my strong suits, but but no, yeah, it's good. And I feel like as the end of the year comes, like we have some like exciting like trips planned and stuff, but I really am trying to focus on the fact that like, yeah, taking on a wedding and like trying to plan that and having help. I do have help, which is really good, but trying to take that on and make sure that, yeah, I'm keeping my eye on the prize and like remembering that there's like this looming event that's happening next year that is going to suck the resources out of me, and it's not a baby. So
This is supposed to be one of the happiest days of your life. Let's try and keep let's try and
yeah,
keep a little bit of perspective.
no, that
You could get overwhelmed, and then I feel like people enjoy it less because the stress is just too much.
right. No, exactly. I mean, like, that's what's interesting. It's because, like, every part that you plan is kind of like, like, here we go, planning, And I do think
Yeah.
some people just naturally enjoy it more. But then when I do it and I see, like, the finished product for something, I'm like, oh, that's really exciting. Like, that looks really cool. Or, like, oh, that'll be fun. And so that part is, I'm trying to remember, yeah, the reward and not so much just the work. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's going against everything in my nature. maybe maybe this is actually like a good learning experience for me as well.
Right. True. True, exactly.
Yeah,
Well, you're not in it alone.
that's
I'm in
true.
Ryan's wedding party, so
Yeah.
I'm here to help every step of the way
Yeah, she's
or
in
to
the
talk
number
you off
one
the
spot.
ledge.
What? Wait, what'd you say?
Or to talk you off the ledge.
Oh.
Whatever you need.
Yeah.
Whatever you need, I'm here.
I know. No, it's so funny too, because like as I'm talking to like different vendors and stuff, like I always just like let them know, because I'm like, oh, I don't know about this, or something, because it's like hard for me to make a decision. But then I also like always end with like, yeah, but we're already married, it's okay, like it's definitely gonna happen. It's just the fact that I am not great at this part of it, but it's not because I'm having second thoughts about actually marrying the guy. So like you could take a load off, it's okay, either way it's gonna happen one way.
Oh my gosh. What have they said? Have you gotten any funny reactions back?
Yeah, I mean, basically, like, I got like a big, like, oh, okay, good to know kind of thing from
Right.
like our event coordinator from the venue, which was pretty funny because she was like, you guys can take a few days if you need to like come back and think about it. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. We're already married. That's it's not cold feet. It's It's just like getting all the pieces together to bring like both of our families together, make sure that
Mm,
it's a pleasurable experience for everyone. But every time
right.
I look at the venue, every time I look at like certain parts of it, like I said, like it does make me very excited. So I'm trying to, yeah, remember that and be focused on like actually being able to enjoy those parts. Like, oh, I'm so excited to see our save the dates. Like, oh, I'm so excited to see like the different things that we can incorporate into that day and that weekend as well. So yeah, so I'm trying to remember those parts. So this week was good on all fronts. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Productive.
yeah,
Productive.
productive. Exactly.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, yeah, that is good. But
Oh,
yeah, how are you doing?
well, I'm doing okay. I still trying to work on my mindfulness, all that good stuff.
Okay.
But I have woken up late for work quite a bit, and that did not, when you kind of start the day in like a low point,
Yeah.
it doesn't really bring it up. So I
Yeah.
had a couple of low points. We'll just three times. I woke up late three times this week, and I work from home. I know how ridiculous this sounds. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get a raise right now, and
Mm-hmm.
I should really be focusing on not getting fired. So, so
Oh my gosh.
that has been a little bit of a stress point for me.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, but I bought a new alarm clock.
You did. You did.
It mimics the sun, so it's like you rise with the sun. It's kind of fancy.
Okay.
Maybe I'll put a picture of it on our Instagram, guys, so you can see because
Yes,
it
yeah.
took me like an hour to set it up because it's got a lot of buttons and stuff. So hopefully I'll that will be useful, and then I will hopefully get my sleep on track
Mm-hmm.
and get my ass out of bed. I also
Mm-hmm.
I don't like waking up and going immediately to my computer. Like I would like to give
Yes.
myself a little bit of time,
Yeah.
to like make some coffee or, like journal a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really just need to adjust my routine. Ryan and I were talking
Yeah.
about this earlier this week, and I that's really what it is. Like I need
Yes.
to adjust my routine overall.
Right.
So I'm gonna try and focus on that this week.
Okay.
If nothing else, to at least wake up on time. But on top of that, I would like to adjust my routine.
Yes.
So going to bed earlier and then giving myself that time in the morning to do a couple of other things before I log in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, exactly. I think, yeah, like you said, we talked about that, right? Like it's super important to have other reasons to wake up than just work.
Yes.
Which like let's be real, like for a lot of us, especially for like you night owls, like me and Morgan happen to be, like it is not enough to just say it's the morning, so wake up. Like I don't care. That means like zero to me and my
Yeah.
brain, like
Right.
so it has to be other reasons. And so like yeah, that's what I was telling her cuz like I am not always on time. Yeah, I'm rarely on time. We'll just say that. But for work specifically, I had to realize that like there's got to be something else that I'm waking up for, whether it's to even just like stretch a little bit or take a shower. Like even taking a shower for me is a better reason to wake up than work. um
Right.
and
And
so
that's the thing. I'm like, my body's not even waking up for work now. Like it's
right.
rejecting that. You know what I mean? Like I have like my rest is overpowering every other aspect. And maybe that's coming with age. Like, I'm not sure because like we used to stay up. I used to get an hour of sleep and then just, get up.
Yeah.
Now my body's like, no, you will sleep through every alarm that you've turned on. Like,
Yeah.
it's wild.
Yeah. No, exactly. I know
So,
Ben, my husband used to like complain about my alarm going off because I would set it for way earlier than I even needed to get up and him because I just had it set for like 6:15. I was like, okay, like
yeah.
6:15, like I'll just set it for that. And if I wake up by 7, it's a win.
Right.
And he's like, but I wake up at 6:15 and you don't wake up. And like I'm trying to search for your phone to like turn it off. And so I had to one change my alarm tone. So I told you that like
Um,
my ring that it was using was just like not working. My alarm was not working.
right.
So that actually really helped. I've been waking up better with this one now.
Okay.
But I will say, yeah, it's more so the motivation because a lot of times, like, you will wake up and you're like, oh, let me just get 10 minutes back of sleep. And then if you sleep through that next alarm or that next snooze, like it's just over for you, you know?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. The biggest thing that helped me in the mornings was waking up for a shower or waking up to do something else. If just something else, whatever it was, that really made a difference. But honestly, it's going to happen sometimes. Like, let's be real. Everyone wakes up late for work sometimes. Or maybe they don't. I don't know. Is this just us or like are people just
I
on time
don't
all the time?
know because I've
No.
never seen, like, we have a morning meeting every morning and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I've never seen anyone else miss it, but clearly I've missed it a few
Yeah.
times last week.
Right.
Like,
Right.
fuck.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know. I'm like,
Yeah. Hey,
I don't know.
you live and you learn, you know?
Yeah. Oh, well, all this work talk. Let's go ahead and just get into today's topic.
Yeah.
So, we are talking about work-life balance, which clearly we need a little more of.
I know. You know the answer to our final question, but we'll keep going.
Right. We're switching it up. We mentioned it at the top of the show this time. So. Oh my gosh. Well, first things first, you guys know we are not experts. Well, clearly.
We're
Not
not even
doctors.
students yet. We're trying to figure it out right now.
I know. Yeah. We are learning together today.
Yes.
So, anyway, let's get into it. So, what is work life balance and why is it important? So, in short, work life balance is a state of equilibrium where a person equally prioritizes the demands of one's career and the demands of one's personal life. Some of the common reasons that lead to poor work life balance include increased responsibility at work, working longer hours, increased responsibilities at home, or having children.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't even have children. And work hasn't been that busy right now. Uh-oh. Okay, so a good work-life balance, and this is according to a career expert and CEO at Amplio Recruiting, says that it has numerous positive effects, including less stress, a lower risk of burnout, and a greater sense of well-being. Not only benefits employees, but also employers.
Okay.
Because your employees might show up on time.
Yeah. Yeah. They make more money when
Among
you're
other
actually
things.
awake. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the definition of work-life balance has been evolving, right? Like if you asked our parents about work-life balance versus who we are now, where we are now, what the workforce looks like in 2022, it's going to be different.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
let's talk a little bit about that. So employers have been putting in tremendous effort trying to determine the best way to appeal to millennial workers. So,
Aside from paying us more, but we'll just gloss over that fact.
so yes, no, that was a bit, yeah, and we'll talk about this because when I found this article, I was like, okay, it's speaking to millennials specifically, and I feel like this is obviously where most of us stand, most of
Mm-hmm.
our audience stands. So let's see what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, with the millennial generation of workers projected to take up 75% of the workforce by 2025, many leaders think it's time to redefine what work-life balance looks like. So, work-life balance is an important aspect of a healthy work environment. Maintaining work-life balance helps reduce stress and prevent burnout, like we said. Chronic stress is one of the most common health issues in the workplace. Yes, definitely can attest to that. I've
Mm-hmm.
been at a few startups now and it gets crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It can lead to physical consequences such as hypertension, digestive troubles, chronic aches and pains, and heart problems. I will also say back problems. I bought one of those things that like pulls your shoulders back because I
Mm-hmm.
just hunch over all the
Mm-hmm.
time. And I
Mm-hmm.
also have a little bit of wrist issues
Oh,
from
yeah. Yeah.
sometimes I'll just have wrist pain.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, welcome to our podcast about all my problems. So Um, so chronic stress can also negatively impact mental health because it's linked to higher risk of depression, anxiety, and insomnia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So many things.
I know, but also this like work from home life as well, because you're not separated or as
Yeah.
separated as you used to be from your work, right? Like, and there's a lot of reasons why. It's not just working from home. Like a lot of people were bringing home work with them well before COVID, right? And like working from
Right.
home. Bringing your laptop home to finish work was a very common situation for most millennials, I'd say.
Right.
Especially if you're working at a company, right? Um,
Right.
so yeah, I do think it's interesting because yeah, like even the 40-hour work week, like keeping a work-life balance when like what 70% of your work is taking up most of your like life, it's just a really tough way to go about trying to find balance in general because it's already off balance by the amount of time that we have to spend at work to make a full work week, you know?
Right.
I was just talking to a new friend that I had met in DC, and we were just talking about like how much we work and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I try to make my middays, middle of the weekdays, like really long, like which is like from 8:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night. Like those are my Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Mm-hmm.
Which I did choose this because I wanted those days to be particularly long so that I could have long weekends, but it does still cause a sense of burnout by the time I get to Thursday, afternoon, and I have to work like maybe a half day because it's just like I'm just so exhausted from like, you know, giving so much during those 2 days. And I'm trying to find like how to like recuperate quicker, but it's
Yeah.
really tough because like your energy levels are just kind of all over the place because it's like your body's trying to compensate at 10:30 at night, but then the rest of the week like I don't have to stay up that late. So
Right.
it is hard to find that work-life balance, even when you get to set your own schedule.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because you still need to keep up. And I forget
Right.
what country is doing it, but they are trying out a four-day work week.
Yeah. A few. It's like Canada, I'm pretty sure was one of them. And it might not be everywhere in the countries, obviously.
Right.
There's probably like
Right.
areas, but I think it was Canada, and I'm pretty sure there was like another country in like Europe or something like that. But
Right. But like, I was thinking that. I was in the shower this weekend and I was like, why do I only have 2 days off a week? Doesn't seem like enough.
yeah. No, it's
Just in
not.
general. And I think we talked about this in another episode way
Mhm.
back. I feel like we did. But like the the way that schedules were made was
Mhm.
based on something that isn't really applicable now.
Right.
I feel like it was because of when the sun was up,
Yes. Right.
right? I feel like we talked about this in another episode. You guys let us know if you can remember. I feel like it might have been quitting your job or something way back, one of our first ones, but
Right.
this
Right.
is kind of coming to me right now.
Yes, yeah.
um
Well, the sun is up. That also has to do with why we're like getting rid of daylight savings time.
mhm.
But yes, but the 40-hour work week, that was like based on like I think it was like after the Industrial Revolution or something.
Ah, yes. Yes.
Yes. So we
Well,
did
because
talk about
people
that.
were working from sun up to sundown, and then they brought in more regulations so that people only had to work 40 hours a week because of the
Yes.
Industrial Revolution.
Yes.
I forget the guy's name who helped impose that.
Right. Right.
But maybe we need to have another one of those.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, what do you think in your like honest opinion, how many hours a week do you think we should be like that we should be working to consider it like a full week? Like if you had to like revamp that right now, like how many hours do you think?
I don't think it should be based on hours. I think it should be, did you
Mm,
get all your work done?
mm,
Because there are some days like where I work now, there are days where I have full days, right?
mm-hmm,
Like busy days, and we can work overtime, and it's
mm-hmm,
just everything needs to get done. So let's all hands on deck kind of thing. But then there are days where I can get most of my work done probably by like 2 p.m., but
okay,
I have
okay.
to stay on. So I'm just
Mm,
looking for things to work on,
right.
which fine, but like there's only so many times you can organize your inbox. You know what I mean? Like, or whatever. Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
so I don't know. I mean, is giving people like responsibility over their workload not a good choice?
Whoa,
I
whoa,
don't
whoa.
know.
Yeah, don't give people too much choice, they'll like be
Right.
happy or something. Um but I do think okay, first of all, there's something to seriously be said about how people view themselves and how much work they do, right? Like we've talked about this before. Like feeling confident in the amount of work that you do and like tying your worth and your value to it in a company, right? Like I worked, 70 hours. Like, oh my gosh, like I'm just doing everything. Okay, well, one, you don't need to be working 70 hours. That's ridiculous. And like people do that all the time. But also two, like I think I definitely agree with what you're saying, like not measuring it in hours, because a lot of times, like, yes, we do fill our days with frivolous bullshit because we just want to make sure that it looks like we're being productive members of society. Like, if you talk to people like, oh, how many hours did you work this week? They're going to be like, oh, yeah, 40 or 30 or whatever. But it's like, okay, but like, how many hours did you actually work? You know what I mean? Like, not including, your, and not to say this is, I'm not like, I don't care, but not including like, yeah, your FaceTime chats with your friends, or like your your phone calls, or your, when you went on social media. Like really think about how much you work throughout the day. I'm not saying that you need to work nonstop. I'm just saying, like, if we were all honest about how much we actually do work, I think the numbers would be a little bit more astounding than people think, because they're like, no, like I get paid for 40 hours. I mean, I work 40 hours. Okay, but like you probably don't. And if you do, you probably deserve a lot more money than you're getting paid. Like
Oh,
the
yeah,
jobs
good
that
point.
really require you to work a full 40 hours a week, you probably deserve a lot more money than most people in the company that are higher up than you. Like
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's the truth.
Yes, that is 100% the truth.
Yeah. So,
Okay, so too much stress over a long period of time leads to workplace burnout. Employees who work tons of overtime hours are at high risk for this burnout, and it can lead to fatigue, mood swings, irritability, and a decrease in work performance. Truth. So, this is bad news for employers because, according to Harvard Business Review, the psychological and physical problems of burned out employees cost an estimated $125 billion to $190 billion a year in healthcare spending in the United States.
dude, we're just fucked on all fronts. Like, yeah, because we have a for-profit healthcare system. Like, I don't even know how to like engage with this, because it's just like, yeah, it costs you money because you overwork your employees and try to convince them that it's good for them and you, which it's really only good for you. And then like when they get burned out or hurt themselves or self-medicate or self-harm or whatever the myriad reasons of what happens when they get burned out, then it's like, oh, and now I have to pick up the tab. It's just like, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation.
Right. Right, exactly. Like, even if you are feeling all of these things, like, there is still the fear of loss of security.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there is no like escape. Like, yes, it's just, it sucks.
I know. And like I do know that in other countries, like, and again, I don't like just saying other countries. Like we'll definitely have to find some like resources and stuff. But like 30 hours or 32 hours being like a full work week, right?
Yeah.
Just imagine how much of a difference that would make, like just taking 8 to 10 hours off of your week. That's why I was kind of asking, like, put a number on it. And I do agree. I don't think it should be, based on like this certain amount of numbers. Like, however, if we are going to say that like hourly wages are still a thing and like that's like the way people get paid, you know, why isn't a full-time work week 30 hours, right? 30 hours over the span of like 4 days or 5 days is a lot less,
Right.
of a responsibility and an undertaking. And then
Right.
maybe that balance, I don't know how many hours are in a week, but maybe that balance then starts to like actually be something that you can aspire to. Because I just feel like 40 hours throughout a week is just that's too much. Like it's too
Right.
much to expect people to be able to find a true balance in themselves and at work. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. And I don't even hate the idea of working 5 days, but maybe on the fifth day, only working like 3 hours.
mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
that's not terrible.
Yeah.
A friend of mine works at a company that does like summer Fridays, they call
Mm-hmm.
it. So, like, every other Friday,
Mm-hmm.
it's half days.
Mm.
So they do summer Fridays, and then they also have required mental health days. So, like, your
Mm.
manager will check in with you and make sure that you're taking your mental health days.
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
every
Okay.
quarter, I think they get two.
Okay.
And so when they do like their one-on-ones or check in, the manager will ask like, when are you taking your mental health
Mm.
days? So
Okay.
I thought that was cool, So I think
Yeah.
some companies are starting to, kind of adjust to that or be cognizant of that. And true,
Right.
like, right, 125 to 190 billion dollars a year, like it might be for their benefit, but that, at least to me as an employee, like sounds a lot better than
Right.
some of the other things that I've experienced, because I have been burnt out. I have left jobs like out of the blue because I'm just like so overwhelmed and done.
Yeah.
I'm not like, those weren't my proudest moments, but like hindsight, it was, I really needed to take that space,
Yeah. Right.
for myself.
Right.
So, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so before we get into the next section, I have a question. Have we ever, as millennials, and you tell me your experience, have you ever been called lazy or entitled?
Ooh. Yes, I've heard people in older generations that I've worked with say things about my generation um as if we are, yeah, very lazy and entitled. And so like it's one of those things where I find it really interesting because the instance that I'm thinking of, like the job that I got at a community college did not require like a degree when the people that I'm talking about got hired. But I came in like in my master's program and had a bachelor's at the time. The other people that I worked with that were also around my age that had already gotten hired previously also had a master's, very, educated, and the people that were calling us lazy and entitled were literally like did not have any degrees, right? They just got hired because like at the time that wasn't a requirement, right? These were when, regular paying jobs and salary jobs could be given to people without a college education or further, which I think completely makes sense, especially for the job that we were doing, but they
Right.
definitely, oh yeah, laid on the comments about how like, like how younger people come in and they expect the job to be this way and like they're not ready to work, da da da. And so again, not necessarily directly to my face, but definitely saying it about the type of person that I am, right? That like we are these types of people that are just expecting too much.
Right.
The
Right. And I
irony.
think
Yeah.
I was just listening to another podcast and they had said something like, like I think it was a dad calling his son a pussy, like was part of this story. And they're like, isn't a parent's job to like make life easier for your kid? Like, don't like, why, like, aren't most parents hoping that like life is going to be easier for their children? Right.
Right. Right.
And like, that's true. Like, and they went on to say, like, as humans, we are trying to make the world more comfortable for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. So what it was back in the day versus what it's like now in 2022, it's different.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Mm-hmm.
different.
Oh
We
yeah.
have, we have knowledge at our fingertips. We have connections, to the entire world right here. And
Mm-hmm.
we have luxuries, we have air conditioning, we have indoor plumbing, like all these things,
Right.
obviously. And so I think it's just different, but same thing. I've experienced the same thing. The problem with your generation is you don't want to work or you don't want to do this.
Yeah.
No, that's not it. Like
Yeah.
yeah, so same. But well, let's get into it because we have a
Yeah.
little compare and contrast coming up here.
Okay.
So, baby boomers and work-life balance. So, born between 1945 and 1960, around the time of World War II, this generation was exposed to a lot of hardships at a very young age. Making a decent living was no small task, and in return, this generation craved stability in the workplace and valued the opportunity for employment. Because of this, work life balance isn't a main priority or concern.
Mm.
Baby boomers tended to stay at companies for longer periods of time than following generations. Many of these employees are currently in senior or director level positions that require a high degree of responsibility. As a result, 80% of baby boomers report moderate to high levels of stress.
Mm. Okay.
So I didn't know boomers stopped at 1960.
The only reason I did is because that's the year my mom was born. And
Oh,
so like it just
okay.
happened to be, yeah, she's like on the cusp, but she is technically a boomer.
What are people called between that and millennials? Okay. We'll have to look it up
I don't know
after
what they're
this.
called. They're basically it's funny that you say that because they're basically like the generation that like kind of started to get fucked with like our economy, but
Yeah.
like still was able to kind of like ride on the coattails of boomers. And so when
Yeah.
you meet people of that age group, it's like right now it's like people that are in their like late 40s, like mid 40s ish, like around that age. They're kind of like, yeah, the last ones to kind of like be able to buy homes if they like got in before the crash and stuff like that. Um, so they tend to hold a lot of the same beliefs that boomers do. Um,
So
and they're
that's yeah, I would have thought my parents were boomers. They were both born in the 60s though.
mm, okay.
Like I feel like they fit into that generation.
Yeah, they still hold a lot of the same beliefs, but like
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Like it's just really tough because like I see why people with like an entrepreneurial spirit and stuff of that generation like think like, oh, like, it's fine. Like working a lot is not a bad thing. Like you're just setting yourself up later for life. But like we just don't have those same systems in place. They're not going to work for us the same. Social Security is not going to work for us the same. And
Right.
so, you know what I mean? And so it's like they're like, no, we paid our dues so that we could like enjoy life later. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't take care of anyone else after you. And I don't know why it became this like chasm between the generations where it's just like, yeah, well, we did what we had to do. It's like, yeah, but you didn't pass on anything for us to inherit. And
Yeah.
so it's just a
Debt.
really tough situation to be in. Yeah, exactly. It's
Lots of
like
debt.
a lot of debt. Right, exactly. Prices started to skyrocket. And now we're just like reaping the very little amounts of benefits that there are, And like, I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this on other episodes, but it's just very hard to convince people our age that there's anything worth buying into with the type of work that we are given?
Right. 1000%. Yeah. I have no I think I've said this before too. Like I don't have a dream of buying a house.
Yeah.
Like one, I'm kind of restless and I don't know where I'd want to like you know, put roots down, but also it doesn't feel attainable.
Yeah. No. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, there's obviously everyone's not going to be a monolith in our generation. There are a lot of people that we even know, that have bought houses and like made that decision for themselves.
Right.
But I would say 90 to 95% of those people have bought homes in places that are more rural, in places that are up and coming areas, so they're like cheaper to buy houses, and I'm not like knocking it like, hey, go and do whatever it is that's going
Right.
to make you happy or,
Right.
give you that sense of stability. But coming from like a couple where me and my husband, make quite a bit of money between us two, and the fact that like we still are too much riddled with student debt and, like basically that's it, basically just student debt, honestly, to like even consider a down payment for a house. And you're right, like we are a little bit more nomadic in terms of like the fact that we don't really know where or if we want to settle down somewhere. But it just
Mhm.
also just doesn't seem like worth it. It just doesn't seem worth it to try and like make these huge sacrifices now when it's the first point in our life where we are both very financially stable and we're expected to give every nickel and dime and not enjoy our life for the next 7 years so that we can have a home. Like what life is that? I don't want to live in 10 years. Like I want to live now. Like I'm enjoying life right now.
Yes, yes, exactly. We have talked about that. No,
Yeah.
yeah, 1000%. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about Gen X and work-life balance. So, as children of the baby boomers, Gen Xers, typically born between 1961 and 1980, grew up witnessing the long hours and poor work-life balance of their parents. Many Gen Xers were exposed to the effects such a relationship with work had on the family unit.
Mm,
As a result, this generation put more emphasis on creating work life balance in their own lives. Many of these employees prioritize spending time with their family and are more likely to utilize their PTO than baby boomers. Because of this, Gen Xers tend to think of work life balance as a necessary prerequisite to a company of employment. They look for perks such as telecommuting, extending maternity/paternity time, and adequate vacation time.
mm,
So a little bit better, but those are kind of some of the basics, right? Like your
mm-hmm.
2 weeks off for the year.
Yeah.
Like the I know, yeah, Ryan's like
I don't know,
Yeah.
guys. Germany gets 6 weeks off. It's just wild to me. Six
It's
weeks
yeah.
per year, not including holidays. Like,
But this makes sense because when I was growing up, we would usually take like one family vacation
mm-hmm,
every year.
mm-hmm,
Like just to the river, like, we didn't grow up with a lot. It wasn't like we were going to Hawaii every year or something.
mm-hmm,
But we would do like a family vacation once a year, like
mm-hmm,
thinking about my parents' jobs. That's what the time they would have off.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
we would go spend a couple days like renting sea-doos and,
mm-hmm.
going out to the river.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, our family, yeah, like we were definitely pretty fortunate in terms of like, monetary gain and stuff like that. Like my parents did have pretty lucrative jobs. Um, don't necessarily agree with those jobs now, but I do understand why they took them and why they were so lucrative at the time. It was the booming of like mass incarceration and they were working in the prisons, like let's just be real, like that gave a lot of people jobs and a lot of the first financial freedom that they ever had of their lives. And so I don't regret it. Like I did have a nice upbringing because of that. We didn't do family vacations every year, but pretty much every year. We did actually go to Hawaii once.
Mm,
And so but I say all that to say that like I didn't come from like extreme poverty and I'm still able to like recognize the fact that like everyone does not have these opportunities and like you shouldn't be expected to understand work-life balance if you never were given that option and you never
yeah.
saw that from the people who raised you. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so many people that I used to go to school with, whether it was college or high school or, even younger, were raised by their grandparents or an aunt or a cousin, even because it was just like whoever was around to watch them because their parents had to work all day and all night. Like
Yeah.
most people couldn't even tell you what a work-life balance was because their parents were working 2 3 4 jobs. It didn't matter what they
Yeah.
had to do to put to have shelter and food on the plate, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think it takes like some stepping outside of your own situation to recognize that, like, even if you were able to get a successful job and you feel like you have a successful work life balance, like, that's super great. Like, I'm glad that you were able to like achieve that for yourself. But like 90% of us, especially within like, yeah, the Gen X to Y or millennials, like, just saw our parents like really having to work well more than whatever 40 hours a week looked like.
Yeah.
And that was even true for my parents, even though they had good jobs, like they still worked well over the allotted, 40-hour work week.
Right.
But they were thankful to get those jobs, as a lot of
Right.
people were. And I feel like it comes from that sense of like, that's where like that entitlement kind of comes from our generation that they think is entitlement because it's like we had to work a whole lot, and we're still here, we're still kicking. And I'm like, yeah, but you're like wildly resentful about it because you're not even happy that we want more for ourselves. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
tough, it's tough. But I will say, like, a conversation I had with my dad like not too long ago, he was just like comparing how his first job where he was in school, able to support himself. He was working a minimum wage job at the time, or a little bit above minimum wage, and he was making $15 an hour, and that was a huge deal. He was
Yeah.
making more than most of all of his friends, and this was well before he had a family. And he's like, and I compare it to now, and people are still fighting to make $15 an hour, even though inflation has like gone way up exponentially.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So there are people out there that are trying to recognize the fact that like our situations are just not the same. Like we are
Yes.
not given the same opportunities. But it's not the majority. A lot of people do think we're, entitled pricks that so
Well, let's talk about it. So, millennials and work-life balance. So, being a millennial, so it says being a millennial comes with its fair share of stereotypes. Generally, for those born between 1981 and 2000, work ethic is thought to be secondary or just a part of life. But for the generation born into the harshest student loan burden in history, finding stable employment, finding stable employment to pay for the higher education of both themselves and their children, as well as soaring housing costs, remains among the highest of priorities. So, with this generation growing to over a quarter of the US population in their prime working years, figuring out what attracts millennials remains one of the biggest HR decisions at any major company. So we're the majority now, people.
Yeah.
So to satisfy the assumed desires of millennial employees, many employers overcompensate by adding game rooms and beanbags to spruce up the work environment. 1000%. I worked at I worked at a company that had like foosball tables and ping pong. So, an entire industry has popped up surrounding these workspaces or no, surrounding making Jesus, I cannot talk today. I'm so sorry. An entire industry has popped up surrounding making workspaces more, quote, millennial friendly. WeWork, one of the most well known of this new breed of property managers, recently made headlines by leasing an entire Manhattan office to IBM, an over 100-year-old company that houses multiple generations of employees.
Dude,
Yes.
fuck WeWork. Like
I
WeWork.
know.
Like I have interviewed for positions in those buildings and they just like, yeah, pop up in pretty much every downtown area across the
Yeah.
country, I'm sure, at this
Yes.
point. Um, and yeah, I remember like interviewing for a few positions, not necessarily startups, but that vibe,
Yeah.
everything's like, like mint green and like gray and it's all very hip, it's just like
Yeah.
Christ. But Morgan has way more experience on this and I'm sure she can share. But it just cracks me up because it's clearly like, yeah, like we know you don't want to be like stuck here all day, but like we're gonna give you like pretzels and like
Right.
fancy tea and like hopefully that makes you like more productive when it's just like who's using the foosball table on their lunch. I mean, there's always like a few bros that are doing it, but like
Yes,
come on,
there's
come
a
on.
couple of bros who would play. Like, I never played foosball.
Yeah.
Like, I gained like 10 pounds because of the snacks. Like, it was not. Also sitting. That was my first,
Mm,
like, because I was working retail before that.
hmm.
So I was moving around a lot more.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that was an adjustment. But anyway, beside the point. So it goes on to say, however, many millennials report that they don't care for these types of perks. Instead, they are more interested in finding a career path that will support their lifestyle, which in this context means their life outside of work. While
Hmm.
ping pong tables and free coffee aren't necessarily scoffed at in this generation, it's important for employers to understand that the same factors that have pushed prior generations to choose which companies to work for, which include pay, career trajectory, and job location,
Mm,
are still the major differentiating factors to the largest working generation in the US,
mm. Yeah.
which is true.
No, exactly. And like that's the thing because a lot of companies, especially during the pandemic and like now, even though we're still kind of in the pandemic, a lot of companies were very upset that like their workers didn't want to come back to the buildings and like wanted to stay home. It was like this whole push, there were articles like, how do we get
Yeah.
them back in the buildings? And it's just like, nobody wanted to be in the buildings in the first place. That was just
Yeah.
where the jobs were. It wasn't because they were very attracted to your high ceilings and foosball tables. Like
Right.
nobody ever wanted that in the first place. You're spending money on frivolous bullshit. Just pay us more. Like it's a
Right.
very easy algorithm. Like I have never been more motivated to show up to work or do a better job because I'm making more. I feel like I'm actually being valued. And even still
Right.
sometimes I feel like I should be getting paid more for this. But it's still not to the point where I feel like, oh my gosh, like I can't even show up to my job anymore, which a lot of
Yeah.
people, i.e. the great resignation, right? Um, but then also too, like in older generations, like just didn't have like the access and the information that we just readily have now. Like
Yeah.
we know how easy it is to go online and find a job. Jobs that are much more accessible to everyone, right? Like the ADA laws weren't even passed until the 1990s. So even recognizing people that were, differently abled and, didn't have the same access to these types of jobs in prior generations are
Hmm.
now a part of the working force like in a way that they've never been. And so it's like you're having to like actually look at people as a whole and not just siphon out their work from them and then say go home and do your work life balance, figure out your work life balance for yourself.
Right.
People are now realizing that like no, if you're going to keep me in here 40 hours a week, you're going to have to acknowledge all of me, and you're going to have to like actually pay attention to the fact that like other factors affect my work, and it's not just I come in here, give you 8 hours of my life and check out and pretend that like, nothing of my identity matters in here. Like it does.
Right.
So,
Yes, well said. Yeah, that's so
yeah.
true. So, unfortunately for millennials, the 2017 Workplace Benefit Report by Bank of America Merrill Lynch found that 59% of millennials report feeling worried about finding a career path that will support the lifestyle they've envisioned for themselves. Which,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. As a millennial in the workforce, I agree.
Yes.
So, let's shift a little bit. I found this article in the New York Times, and it was called Young People Are Going to Save Us All from Office Life. So kind of goes with Ryan's point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So um it is about one person, but then it kind of goes on to talk a little more generally. So this girl's name is Ariel Coleman. She's 28. She quit her last job as a project manager in a corporate office of a bank. It wasn't because her new employer offered her a raise, a different role, or more seniority. She just said that the work life balance was much better.
Hmm.
And at her new company, which is called OMFG Co., which I'm going to look that up because I'm like, what do they do? So at her new company, OMFG Co., a branding and design firm in Portland, everyone works from home on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Tuesdays and Thursdays at whichever hours they choose.
Mm.
So she can go for a run or walk her dog. And this is kind of what we were talking about when we were talking about hours earlier. Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like
Yeah.
this flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
So she said at the bank, people judged her for taking her paid time off. Like, and I get that. I've had
Oh
that
yeah.
feeling. Like,
Oh, for sure.
and
Oh,
I
you're gonna.
felt that way sometimes. I'm like, they're never here. And I'm like, it doesn't fucking matter to me. Like, I
No.
check myself, like, Morgan,
Yeah.
they don't do your job and you
Yeah.
don't do theirs.
Right.
Like, they're
Right.
utilizing whatever time, like,
No.
so,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
but that's so true. So, so at her new company, it's encouraged, which is why she didn't mind answering work emails while sitting by the fire on a recent camping trip.
Mm.
Which, like, yes, I get, but also, like, you do need to disconnect fully sometimes.
Yes, right, exactly. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like the intention I do think is there. I do think one, yeah, companies recognize how fiscally responsible it is to like take care of your workers. But there's also like this bigger looming question of just like, yeah, but if you don't extract the amount of work that we expect in this country, other companies are going to take advantage of those same people, like it's going to
Yeah.
happen. And that's why I'm saying like it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't, because someone is going to get exploited, and if it's not your company, it's going to be somebody else's company. And so
Right.
I do feel like it's kind of a catch 22 in this country specifically, because everybody is still trying to make the highest numbers, right?
Right.
And be the best and be the highest. And like, right, yeah. Yeah, it's so, I don't know. I just think all in all, like, it's really tough for us to look at work like, it's really tough for us to look at work life balance in like a vacuum, because there are so many factors that impact it, you know what I mean? And so I, as much as I do like appreciate the conversation, it's just really tough because I do feel like in this country we have combined work and life. Work and life are should be
Yeah.
the same thing, right? Do what you love every day and you'll never work a day in your life. Like that's not true. That doesn't exist. If you have to do what you love for work, you are going to be working for what you love. And at least that work is something that you're interested in, right? Like that's like
Right.
at best these days. Like that's why, in one of our recent episodes, I said, like I don't want my life to be, summed up in something that I've done or worked on. Like I want to enjoy all the things about life that are meant to be enjoyed. And honestly, work usually does not come to mind when I think about doing things that I love. Like that's just, and I have a job that I have a lot of interest in, but it's not something that I'm just in love with every day that I can't wake up, I can't wait to wake up and do. No, it's just that like I have enough interest and care for what I do to do it every day.
Right.
That's like the best that I can hope for with work,
Yeah.
you know?
Right. Or you have to buy yourself a new alarm clock.
Yeah.
So So she goes on to say that, or the article goes on to say that many of her friends have chosen their jobs for similar reasons. She says that's how millennials and Gen Zers are playing the game. It's not about jumping up titles, but moving into better work environments.
Mm.
They're like silent fighters rewriting policy under the nose of the boomers.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So younger workers are pushing back. Most of them expect and demand flexibility, paid leave for a new baby, along with daily things like ability to work remotely, come in late or leave early, or make time for exercise or meditation.
Hmm.
The rest of their lives happen on their phones, not tied to a certain place or time. Why should work be any different?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it's rare for companies to operate this way, and the obstacles are bigger than any one company's HR policy. Some older employees may think new hires should suffer the way they did, and employers benefit from having always on workers. Even those that are offering more flexibility might be doing it because unemployment is so low and they're competing for workers, which could change if there is an economic downturn. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it goes on to say it's also a luxury to be able to demand flexibility in the first place. Those who tend to have college degrees and white collar careers can afford to take pay cuts in exchange or be highly selective about their jobs,
Hmm. Yep.
which, yeah, exactly. We were talking about this earlier. So, that kind of freedom that people in vast sectors of the economy don't have, and often it's given to highly regarded employees on a one off basis, but not to everyone at a firm
Yeah.
or a company or a whatever, your whatever industry you're in.
Right.
So, still, there are signs that things could change for more workers. Some large and influential companies, including Walmart and Apple, have recently begun talking about the need to shift from prioritizing shareholders above all else to take care of their employees too. And as more millennials become bosses and more job seekers demand a saner way to work, companies will have no choice.
Yeah, I mean, I call
So
bullshit. Those companies aren't doing anything different. They like
they're
outsource
talking
like
about it.
yeah, they outsource like
Right.
90% of their work. Like, let's be real. Like,
Right. That's a
yeah,
good
for
point.
maybe yeah, the 10% that works at like the Apple, office, wherever that is. I'm
Right.
sure it's probably in Silicon Valley or some shit. Like, sure. I'm sure they'll get like 3 extra days off of work, but like, yeah, right.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. So, demanding that employers treat employees well is part of the value system of the youngest generation of workers, which is the most diverse, researchers and recruiters say. Gen Z is so socially aware and so progressive. They're asking for things that older generations have been scared to ask for.
there you go.
So, a survey by Work, which helps companies add flexibility strategies, found that older employees are just as likely as younger people to want flexibility. They're less likely to have it, though, because they're less likely to ask for it. Sometimes tensions flare between young people who demand a life outside of work and desk bound older employees.
Yep. And
So
and
there
cue
really
the
shouldn't be this
resentment.
huge divide. Exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone wants the same thing, right? Like if
Yeah.
a company with baby boomers at it and, Gen Xers and millennials all implemented, some kind of flexibility policy, I like who would complain? Nobody.
The boomers, they still would. They complain about everything. Like that's the thing. I've worked with like seriously, especially in education, like it's chock full of
Mm,
boomers. Like that's
yeah.
honestly like their last like dying brigade. Like everything is a constant battle between like, well, we didn't get that. Like we didn't choose that or like and it's just like no one cares. We have to try and make it better for the people that are coming in after us. Like it's not about you. It's not always about what benefits you're going to reap from this. Like it's so that the next generation of people who have way more like situations in their, in their scope of no, that's not what I meant to say. It's for the next generation of people who are coming in here with a whole different set of problems and need us to advocate for them. Like it's not always about advocating for yourself. And I think because boomers think that nobody did this for them, it's like, yeah, but that's not our fault. Like, let's make sure that that never happens again. Like, that's
Right,
it.
right. And we talked about this. Like, we've literally had this conversation. Was it about quitting your job? Man, so many references to old episodes.
I
We just
know.
have so many now that I can't remember them all. No, I'm just kidding. But we talked about this in regards to like helping someone move up, right?
Mhm. Oh,
Like
yeah.
being a resource for someone else who is
Mhm.
interested in what you do.
Mhm.
Like giving them those resources that you might have had to fight for, or, like that you know, received opposition on. Like
Mhm.
being that like to someone else. I have two younger cousins. They're 10 years younger than me, both in college right now.
Mhm.
I told them and I did help them with things like financial aid, with
Mhm.
things like applications and stuff, things that I didn't have.
Mhm.
But I'm like, you know what? I have a lot of student debt. Maybe you should really look into grants and these things that I didn't know about, because
Yes.
I don't want them to have those same kind of, burdens that I have.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, for sure.
So it's definitely a shift in perspective.
Yes, definitely. And it's a shift outside of your own perspective, which is what tends to create such that chasm between generations and just
Yeah.
between, different types of people in general, right? But like it really is tough, especially in this country, because I feel like it's just most of the time like, well, I didn't get it, so I don't know why you expect it either. And it's just like the
The
world
world
is on
is
fire.
different.
That's
Yeah.
not going to it's not going to solve literally anything. So,
Right. Oh
uh
my God. Yeah. Yeah. So, wrapping it up with some tips, if you are looking for more work life balance at your current company, I mean,
mhm.
our first tip would be find a new job. No, I'm just kidding. But um just some quick tips that I found. So, one, learn to say no,
Mm,
which is okay.
yeah.
Like I've been this person who's like, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it. Yeah, exactly. And then, right, like, no, you're still a productive person. Like you're
Mhm.
still valuable, but
Right.
you deserve a little bit of time to yourself too. So
Yeah.
learn to say no.
Yes.
Take breaks. I've definitely skipped lunches. Like, yes, take your break. And the next one is use your lunch break. Like actually go
Mm.
nourish your body, or if you're in the office, go outside, or you know what I mean? Like
Mhm. Mhm.
definitely disconnect in some capacity
Yes.
just for a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
Ask for flexibility. Even you boomers, if we have any listening, ask for it.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Prioritize your health. Practice self-compassion.
Mm.
So going back to the stress, the insomnia, the depression, things like that, like give yourself a little bit of compassion
Mhm.
and get it done tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Communicate your boundaries, make time in your schedule. And Ryan and I have talked about this before too. Make time for free time.
Mhm.
Pencil it in if you have to.
Yes.
And ask for help.
Ooh, a good one.
Yeah, which I'm bad at, but it's true.
Yeah.
You're probably on a team. Ask for help.
Right. No, exactly. It's super important. And there will be some people that might make you feel, not the best for asking for that help, but it's probably just because they never asked for it themselves, you know? And so that
Right.
shouldn't deter you from being that person. Like I was just talking with somebody and I was like, I've came to the conclusion I am the person that will ask way too many questions. But it's only because I know for a fact that other people need those questions answered too. I know
Yeah.
it.
Right.
Everyone does not have the same deducing skills. And as a person that has worked in different sectors, like I do kind of have a lot of those skills. Like we've talked about transferable skills, right? Going
Right.
back to our quitting your job episode.
Yes.
And yeah, like I know when you start a new job, it's very intimidating to be the one that asks questions, but there are a lot of gaps in the way that we go about teaching jobs and teaching people how to do things in new companies. And so
Yes.
I have been that person. And if you are a person that's comfortable with asking those questions in meetings and, in those types of, sessions and webinars. Like, do
Right.
that work, because there's always going to be people that don't feel comfortable but do need that same help and that same guidance.
Right. Right. Yeah. Don't feel like it's something to be looked down on.
Right.
It could very well be a resource for
Mm-hmm.
others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So, the big question. Are we doing this wrong?
Mm.
I
Yeah.
mean, I am. I bought a new alarm clock. I'm working on it. But I think as a country, like as a whole, I think we've
Oh
made it
yeah.
pretty clear like
Oh yeah.
it's 2022 now. Like there's so many things that it's just different. It's
Yeah.
different now and we haven't really adjusted to that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
by 2025, maybe we will see these things, you know?
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
said, 75% of the workforce is going to be millennials.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
So stop buying foosball tables.
right, and pay me more.
And pay me more.
Right. I would like to entertain the idea of maybe buying a house one day.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe.
No. No, seriously. Yeah. You know, when you're like rooting for a stock market and a housing crash, that
Yeah.
maybe something has gone wrong in your generation. Just maybe, you know?
Right.
So.
Yes. Mm, that's depressing. Oh, well, that wraps it up for this one, you guys. We would love to hear if you found the perfect work-life balance. Please share. Um, let us know. You can reach out to us on our email at wrongthepodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to watch YouTube for the visual conversation. Don't forget to follow and join the conversation on Instagram at Wrong the Podcast.
Mhm.
And most important, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And that's it.
Yeah.
We will see you guys next time.
Bye.